Comic book sales numbers are out for September, and there's all kinds of Marvel movie news to talk about on this episode of Comics Cafe. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Comics Cafe, which is my chance to talk to you guys and go over some topics that I didn't have some time to this week. So the first thing that I want to really touch on is the Logan trailer. So there's so much news dropping around Marvel movies this week, it was almost hard to keep up with. But in the Logan trailer, we saw a few different things. So while the early speculation with this was that this was going to be kind of a play on Old Man Logan as a movie, it really kind of boils down to the fact that they don't have enough properties to really carry out that story, so they're going to take inspiration from Old Man Logan and put it into this new Logan movie. So we see the more desolate wasteland. According to Logan, there are no more mutants, and what we really kind of lean from that is it a virus or some sort of extinction level event? Or did they take a little bit of that berserker from Old Man Logan and make it his responsibility, kind of why he's in hiding? But you'd think that Professor would know something like that. You know, he is the most powerful telepath in the world. We also see the introduction of characters like X-23's Laura Kinney, who made a cameo as a test tube, kind of like she did in the comic books back in X-Men Apocalypse, where her sample was abducted by the Essex Corporation. So that leads a lot of people to believe that Mr. Sinister is going to be the big bad behind this, even though we're talking about the Reavers as the main kind of antagonists, and the Reavers are really like cybernetic hunter, stalker, killer kind of creatures. But the big thing is that Lady Deathstrike, in this final part of the trailer, you see the claws coming down through that. That really implies to me that Lady Deathstrike is going to come back as part of this. I'm not sure where it's going to fit inside the Marvel continuity because, well, it's going to be set way in the future compared to everything else that's going on right now. But it's good to see that they're going to be kind of taking this approach, and it really feels a little bit more like, I like the Western idea. I like the post-apocalyptic Western that they're turning this into. The other real big trailer, it's not really a trailer, it's more like a teaser that hit, was Guardians of the Galaxy. So Guardians of the Galaxy was really more about the movie poster, and the movie poster right there it's awesome. It's like this rock album cover, and that's probably one of the biggest parts of Guardians of the Galaxy that made it a success, was the soundtrack and how it worked with the movie. And when James Gunn originally did Guardians of the Galaxy, he wanted it to be a space opera, and he turned it into kind of like a space rock opera. So they led off with one of the most popular songs, Blue Swede, that was Peter Quill's song, that's my song, that's mine, you can't have it. Which was one of the better parts of the Guardians of the Galaxy first movie, so it leads off with something familiar while introducing you to other things that are going to be going on there. So what we do is we see, Yondu and Rocket going through the prison as the bodies hit the floor, even though I doubt Drowning Pool is going to be on the soundtrack. We see Gamora in a scene where she's kind of like up against this space portal that looks eerily reminiscent of the Rainbow Bridge, or at least what somebody else's construct of the Rainbow Bridge from Thor would look like. You've got Baby Groot and Rocket at the end, which is just going to really kill the merchandising. There's going to be so many little Baby Groot toys, you're not even going to know what to do with them. But they held a lot back, and I think that the main reason that they held a lot back was because there's going to be a bigger trailer dropping when Doctor Strange premieres on the 4th. Speaking of Doctor Strange, they had the premiere in Hollywood, and basically out of the premiere section, we got a lot of different kind of ideas about what this is all about. There are some people saying that Doctor Strange has some of the best action sequences in Marvel history, which is a really big deal because the set pieces in Avengers, Captain America Civil War, those are just gigantic action scenes. If you think about the Hulk fighting, Iron Man in his Hulkbuster armor, that was gigantic. If you think about, the Avengers invasion on New York, even though the Chitauri were just this kind of like mindless hive mind situation, just a whole bunch of aliens running amok, it was still like a very huge set piece. And then Civil War, of course, the airport scene is just immense. So if it has some of the best action sequences, and the biggest in Marvel history, you've got to wonder what the scope of those is, and whether it's really kind of going into the dimensionality. The other thing is that people are saying that 3D was made for Doctor Strange, not the other way around, because it enhances the concept behind the movie and the visuals. So I'm going to see it on opening night on November 4th, so I'm going to do a review on it then, and then I'm going to go see it in 3D a few days later just to get a comparison, and I'm really excited to see what 3D brings to a movie because I haven't really been a fan of 3D before. But the other good words are that it has all the Marvel visuals that you'd really want for a Doctor Strange movie, trippy, acidic in terms of its scope, the presentation is visually stunning. And then, yeah, it just looks like it's a really great portrayal of Doctor Strange. And I can't wait to see what it's all about. But once we get done talking about comic book movies, we should probably talk about comic books themselves. And one of the things that I was talking about for a long time is the sales numbers associated with DC Rebirth. Because when those books came out, you know, you had Harley Quinn selling almost 300,000 copies, 400,000 copies. Same thing with a lot of like Batman, Superman. And the big thing was that even though those books were returnable, you know, they were being told that it's not going to impact the sales figures that much. But what we're going to get this month with September, well, because this month's October, but last month's sales figures, which got released a few days ago, we're going to get an idea as to what continuing readership was all about. So since I can't really get these things off the top of my head, I did take a few notes. So if we're going to compare a few books, I picked out a few choice ones from DC Rebirth to give you a little bit better idea as to where things are at. So Batman #1 originally sold something like 190,000, 200,000 copies. And Batman #2 sold 177,105. That's what went to distribution inside the United States. When it comes to Batman issue #6 and issue #7, they're more about the 130,000 range. So you're seeing a decrease of about 40,000 units and, you know, over 20% decrease in the actual sales figures. And that's for Batman, which has consistently been around 100K since the introduction of the New 52. So that's really the benchmark for the industry, and it has been for quite a while. So that's a little telling. It's doing a little bit better than what you'd expect, which is around 115,000 so far. But if you make a comparison to, say, Batman 44, which is a long storyline piece, you know, well into the New 52, and later on in the Snyder and Capullo run, that was September 2015, you know, 1 year ago when these numbers were released, and that book sold 114,409 copies. So the amount of gain that you have over that particular book that was 40 plus issues into its run compared to issue 6 and issue 7, which are just the beginning of a new run of a creator, you know, you're only gaining 20,000, and that could easily level off as we get closer to that particular number run. So the gains might be a little bit more minimal off of a book like that. You also have Green Lanterns. So Green Lanterns #2, that sold 82,000 copies. Its first issue did 100K. And right now on Green Lanterns issue 6 and issue 7, you're about 58,000, which puts you right about, you know, 30, I think, in the top 30 for actual books sold. But if you compare it to Green Lantern 44, starring Hal Jordan, which that book was selling 39,000. So Green Lanterns right now is a sizable increase over where that book was at that point in time. Whether it's going to sustain there, you know, whether it's going to sit and it's going to be able to level off around the 50, 55,000 mark over, you know, for continued readership, that's something that's yet to be seen. But talking to my local comic book shop, Green Lanterns isn't necessarily one of their most popular sellers, so I'm sure that there are differences in your area, so hit me up in the comments down below and let me know what you've noticed as far as your comic book shop and what they're carrying for books. The big thing is Harley Quinn. So Harley Quinn, that was the, you know, 300,000 plus copy first number release, and for that book, issue 2 was 116,651 copies, while issue 4, just 2 issues later, is almost half that at 73,000. So this is comparing to Harley Quinn back in 2015, where she was selling about 57,000 copies. So there's a sizable gain in Harley Quinn's market, and that's most likely because of the increased marketing associated with Suicide Squad, the movie, and everything else that comes along with that. You know, Margot Robbie's portrayal of the character was great, and that's going to impact those things. But as far as DC Rebirth as a success, right now it looks like it's going to be able to sustain a little bit more readership. You know, it's going to grab a few more new people, because Rebirth's really just a continuation of the New 52, but they're adding in new people. But the overall impact, you know, any gain is great, but it's not quite as drastic as the media would have made you think early on. It's definitely a huge spike, and they're consistently outperforming Marvel right now, taking out 39 of the top 50 spots for comic books sold in September. We're going to have to see what All New, All Different Marvel does, but based on the amount of issues that I've seen so far this month for All New, All Different books, I don't think Marvel's going to gain on them that much unless they do something really crazy and, you know, really catch the attention of the media. To finish off with, I'll talk about new media projects. So I just finished filming 4 new videos. So that would be for the comics classroom section, so that way I can give a little bit more insight, a little bit more of those fundamentals for people that are just getting into comic books, because not everybody out there is a consistent comic book follower. You know, you haven't been in the industry for a while, so I want to give you a little bit of insight on who makes them, where they come from, and how to take care of them, because that's a really big deal for a lot of different people. We also have preview picks, which is filming today for Monday, and then we'll be doing Shelf Appeal, a few more iRate reviews, and then I'm curious as to what you guys thought about the Renew Your Vows Rewind, because I want to do a lot more historical kind of recaps of comic books and comic book arcs, so that way you guys can get as much information. I can get you caught up on certain characters and things like that if you're not necessarily familiar with them. So I wanted a little bit of feedback on that, so if you can hit me up in the comments down below, let me know what you thought about that video. That would be awesome. As always, if you like what you see, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows, and games, and, well, anything and everything inside the world of comics. Always happy to chat.